All that money surging into politics only adds to a growing distrust of the election process in Montana, which has inspired new ballot counting procedures in counties statewide. Montana PBS's Hannah Kearse reports on how local election officials are working with citizens to ensure a fair and accurate election.
Processing votes in Montana's general elections is more complex and resource-intensive than ever before. Part of this is due to rising doubts about election integrity. In response, county election offices, alongside the state legislature, have implemented new procedures aimed to strengthen voter confidence in Montana's elections. This includes a new law that requires counties to continuously count ballots until every legal vote is tallied.
We're doing something new this year. The Secretary of State offered grants for a program to assist with that late night counting, knowing that we have this law. And so we applied for that grant and received monies to hire people specific to do just that job. Come in at 10 or midnight on election night and work through the night to keep the process going. And we appreciate that, the efforts made, but it's also very difficult to hire those people.
Gallatin County saw this law in action for the first time in this year's primary election, which involved just over 29,000 ballots.
We get here usually between 5 and 6 a.m. on election day, work all the way through election day, through election night, and this last election we got done, I think my manager and I got out of here a little after 10 o'clock Wednesday night, without a wink of sleep. It's long.
And primary elections don't have the kind of voter turnout that general elections do. If Gallatin County sees the same percentage of voter turnout as it did in the 2020 general election, it can expect the number of casted ballots to almost double that of this year's primaries. The continuous count bill creates a new challenge, especially for the state's larger counties, like Gallatin and Yellowstone.
Everything that we can count, we're supposed to continue counting. We can't stop if we're tired. We just have to keep going so we can get those results out to the public. And so planning administratively for that and trying to find people that are able to work those late hours, because it's not just people are willing to do it. A lot of people are willing, but are they awake? Are they able to do really focused, detailed work on a timeline when they may not usually be awake?
Previously, election offices were allowed to take a break to get some sleep and finish the count the following morning. But the legislature saw this as an unnecessary delay for election results, citing that the longer the public must wait, the less confident they are in the election results. No evidence has been produced to indicate that Montana's election results are fraudulent, but the belief that Montana's elections aren't secure has initiated changes in the state's elections process. County election offices are the boots on the ground when it comes to Montana's elections. It's where the bulk of the state's election procedures are carried out, and counties can implement their own procedures to satisfy their county needs. Now, administrators are also addressing their county's concerns of election integrity.
It's extremely time-consuming and labor-intensive. It definitely adds a lot of labor and labor costs to have those processes followed, but it's really important to be able to show, hey, we issued this many ballots and we received this many ballots back and we counted this many ballots and these numbers should match up.
This is the basis for Montana's reconciliation process of ballots, which tracks casted ballots from the voters' hands to the final count. And it's just one safeguard in a series of security measures.
And there's so much paperwork. It's not just the reconciliations that are following the ballots, but we have logs for almost everything we touch. We have logs now for ballots. Also, all of our election equipment, every single piece of equipment has its own log sheet. Every time you turn on a tabulator, you log in to this that shows that you accessed the tabulator. Our express votes machines, our electionware computer. All these things are tracked every single step of the way.
This is among the ways that counties are increasing accountability for election workers involved in the process.
One of the things Yellowstone County implemented this year was transport teams of 2. We try to have bipartisan teams doing everything, so there's good accountability. And one of the other things that we have implemented this election cycle is we have paperwork that travels with the ballots after they're checked into the computer system. That is a style that we adopted from some other big counties on the western part of the state. They started implementing that a few years ago, and we like that. We think it provides more accountability. It provides us with better information for our canvass board.
With a growing population and number of election procedures in Montana, most counties had to increase its number of election judges for this year's general election. Here, in the Gallatin County Courthouse, election judges undergo the legally required training. In this upcoming election, about 400 election judges will serve Gallatin County's 46 precincts. And in Yellowstone County, the community also rose to the occasion with another 400 plus trained election judges ready to serve Montanans.
The community has been incredible. I mean, our election judges are our lifeblood, and the community has really responded when we put out the call. So we're really proud of our citizens in Yellowstone County.
Montana's election process depends on the coordinated effort of election judges and administrators in every county. And although there is no evidence of large-scale voter fraud, the likes of those alleged in the 2020 election, voter fraud does happen. Even in Montana, a fraud conviction came out of Bozeman in 2021. And that's why the verification and reconciliation processes are so tedious.
I used to be an attorney at the legislature, and I used to write election laws for legislators. And the first time I looked at the election law in terms of the signature verification process, I thought to myself, there's no way that they can check this many thousands of signatures. And then we were invited to Lewis and Clark, and we went over to see their processes, and I saw them check every single signature. And that was my baptism to elections. And I was so impressed with how much time and effort election offices put in to make sure that you are the person who is sending back your ballot.
Another feature of the election process is that it's open for the public to observe in a way that protects voting privacy. But in this general election, Montana will also have trained observers watching. Gallatin and Yellowstone counties are 2 of the 15 counties participating in the Montana Election Observation Initiative. This Montana-driven initiative is assessing how well counties are carrying out Montana's voting laws.
I already feel good about having poll watchers from both parties, so essentially both sides are already doing that process. And, you know, we have a good relationship with both those parties working in this office, so I'm already pretty confident in that, at least for Gallatin County, but it can't hurt, right? They're nonpartisan, and just seeing things objectively, I think that's a good thing.
The Carter County and University of Montana's Maureen and Mike Mansfield Center partnered to fund and facilitate this initiative, but Montanans are responsible for the groundwork.
If we can shine a light and people can see that we're just an average citizen observing our election systems and how transparent it is to every citizen, that it will rebuild the trust some people have lost in our election system. That's my hope.
And one thing that I learned today that I thought was really interesting was how involved the process is.
Yes.
Every single step of the way, care is taken to ensure that people have a private vote, to ensure that their vote gets counted, to ensure that everything is done by the book.
Right, I agree.
One reason Montana was a candidate for this initiative is because it allows nonpartisan election observation, which many states don't. But the recent shift in election confidence across the nation was a big driver for this kind of work.
You know who's running our elections? Your neighbor, your friend. The person you voted for in the previous election. You see the same people, and that hasn't changed. The laws have changed, some for the better, maybe some for the worse, but it hasn't affected the way we operate elections. We're hoping that through what we're doing, because you learn all about Montana law and Montana elections, and when you sit through and watch an election process for hours, you start seeing what your neighbors, what your friends, what your relatives, what those volunteers are doing based on what the law is, and you can follow along, and it starts to make sense.
With a former Secretary of State and legislatures from across the aisle on the board, the MTEOI is tasking Montanans to observe key parts of the election process. In addition to gaining skills for nonpartisan and fact-based election observation, participants also learn about Montana's voting laws, and the hope is that it all contributes to stronger voter confidence in communities across the state. If you're heading to the polls in one of the 15 counties that the initiative is observing, you may see some of it underway. But you don't need a trained eye to observe Montana's election process in action. The initiative is observing a public process. Every step of the way is open to the public, and you may be surprised what you learn.
For me, it was how each ballot is tracked. And I mean, ballots come and they're sealed, and you have to verify with two election judge signatures, that everything has come in the proper manner. Every time the ballots move along the process, judges sign, they move them along. It's very impressive. And the secrecy. They really work hard to preserve each voter's secret ballot.
For Impact, I'm Hannah Kearse.
Whether you vote in person or absentee, ballots must be received at county election offices by 8 p.m. on Tuesday, November 5th. You can then track your ballot using the voter portal on the Secretary of State's website.